In this video, we're going to be talking about the wrecking light. We will explain what we mean by the wrecking light in the Lighthouse programme. And we will come on to a personal example given to us by a mum that perhaps quite graphically describes one such experience in adulthood. Just to warn, we are talking about distressing and traumatic experiences that may have happened in your family, to you, as a child or as an adult, or in some cases both. So what do we mean by the wrecking light? Well, we chose this term because there are stories, some true, some false, about pirates using false lights to mimic a safe harbour, to lure ships to their doom on the rocks, and in some instances killing the occupants and taking whatever could be salvaged from the wreck of the ship. We chose this because it is a fact that some adults cause intentional harm to children. They appear to offer an illuminating beam and safe harbour, but they do so only ultimately to take control and use or abuse the child as they choose. Sexual abuse falls into this category, for instance. Children who have suffered neglect or trauma are often more vulnerable to exploitation because they are desperately searching a light outside the family to guide them safely. We know also, of course, that in some instances, adults who are parents themselves pose this danger to their own children. Sexual abuse often happens within a trusted relationship, whether it's by a family member or a friend of the family. And again, the abuser has used their illuminating beam to become an important person to the child, and then chooses to exploit the child sexually. Remember, the skills of mentalizing can be misused as well as used for good. This misuse of mentalizing, again, we call the wrecking light. Now, understandably, if you have suffered this kind of abuse, where you have been tricked into thinking you were in safe hands, it actually undermines your capacity to trust and your confidence in being able to judge between who's safe and who is unsafe. In many ways, but including in this way, the undermining of trust in others, it causes potentially great harm over our lifetime. A really good question is, how do we differentiate between an illuminating beam offering a safe harbour and a wrecking light that ultimately will exploit us? Now, of course, it's very difficult, and I don't have a simple answer. One thought I have is that we can be trying to find out, be curious about whether the light that's being shone on us feels to have at its heart a question or a demand. And by question, I mean something like, help me understand. And if out of that you and I feel closer, then that's good too. But fundamentally, I'm interested in how you see the world, or what this experience has been like for you right now. That's my interest. That would appear to me to be closer to a genuine illuminating beam. If at its heart it has a demand that goes something like, if you do this for me, if you are like this for me, if you say these kind of things or behave in this way, then look how much closer we will be, and how much cozier or comfortable or safe it will feel for you. Well, that is a demand, not a genuine, curious, undemanding stance. And those we need to be wary of. Not all of those indicate the person means us harm, but perhaps at that moment they are thinking of their needs and not of ours equally. The following is an example of a wrecking light. It's given us by a mum who was in one of our groups, and we had a session on the projecting beam, and the images of the wolf that Madeline Everett had used to beautifully illustrate the way in which a parent might project onto a child an experience from the past. Parents had talked about the power of the images, and this mum went away after the group and wrote the following letter, which she read out to the group the following week.
Although last week I didn't see the video and only saw the pictures that Jerry showed, hearing the way some of you spoke about them, hearing your thoughts and feelings on them, got me thinking about how I felt. And I came to realise when the wolf was spoken about how that impacted on my life. When thinking, I realised that in my past, my life was similar to Red Riding Hood's. I'm going to tell a short version about how they were almost alike. At the beginning, I was sort of like Red Riding Hood. Although she went into the forest and got lost, my mind at the time was lost with hurt, heartache, and feeling alone. Then a man showed up at my mum's door, just as Red Riding Hood showed up at Granny's, wolf in disguise. When Granny let her in, she didn't know who or what she was letting into her home. Or she thought she was someone she loved and wanted her safe, was her granddaughter. Just like me, I thought at that time I felt loved, safe and happy with him. Later on, she showed Granny who she really is, just as I found out he wasn't who I thought he was. But by the time we both realised it was too late, Granny was gobbled up, but for me, it was my mind that had been gobbled up. The wolf was waiting for Red Riding Hood to return. But for me, I had let the wolf into my home and where my children was. Although Red Riding Hood realised and got help, my story had a different ending. I had a sad ending, where so much damage was done, I lost everything. I lost myself, and most importantly, I lost the ones I loved the most. I came to realise that although as a child I heard this story, I thought that's all it was. But now I think about this story, it can teach us a lot for the dangers that are really out there in this world.
As you heard in that story, for this mum, there was someone who seemed to offer at a point at which she was vulnerable and searching for someone to offer her safe harbour. He showed up in her home environment, looking even safer, and yet it turned out that he caused her and her children a great deal of harm, so that, in her own words, she lost everything. One could understand how, after an experience like this, it might be incredibly difficult to trust someone else's apparently illuminating beam, someone else's safe harbour. And yet it's hugely important that we allow ourselves to be helped, supported, loved in relationships that are good for us. And of course, this is what we are offering our children. We're wanting them to have repeated experience of our curiosity, our interest, our warmth, our love, our dedication to supporting them through their journey. We're wanting to offer them that safe harbour that they can return to with any feeling, any emotion, any experience that has happened for them. But how difficult it might be when our trust has been betrayed in the past to learn to trust again and take that risk. We are aware that parents, just like yourself, do this program, the Lighthouse program, probably starting from a position of really low levels of trust in us. And that's fair enough. Trust has to be earned over time. What parents often find in the group is that trust is more easily established with each other, with other parents who've had similar experiences in their own childhoods or in their own lives, than it is with us as the facilitators. And that's okay. You don't have to trust us completely for you to get the benefit, or many of the benefits from this program. Thank you for watching this video.